When I think of an Audi, well-built luxury cars like the A4, A6, and A7 quickly come to mind. However, about 12 years ago, the company really shocked enthusiasts when they introduced their first ever mid-engine supercar, the R8. It was built off the same platform as a Lamborghini Gallardo. It came standard with a 4.2-liter V8, later optional with the same Lambo-developed V10, and it came standard with Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive system. Now, back in 2017, Audi completely redesigned the R8, moving it to the new Huracan platform, making the V10 as standard. And today, the R8 is still very much known as the everyday supercar. So this week, as you can see, Audi has loaned me the 2020 V10 performance trim. This is a new trim level this year, which is technically last year's V10 Plus model. It got new styling in the front, in the rear. It got more power for the base engine. And the big question I want answered, with the changes that Audi has made to the R8 this year, is this thing still very much known as a Lamborghini for a lot less money? That's what we're here to find out. Now, I mentioned the R8 as an everyday supercar because Audi is very much known for building all-wheel drive vehicles. Quattro is what their Audi Sport division is known for. So of course the R8 comes standard with it. And this is the first supercar that a lot of people like to associate is the one that you can drive every day. I mean, sure, there was the Acura NSX, but that was rear-wheel drive. This is all-wheel drive. So in rainy conditions like this, you can theoretically take your supercar out and you don't have to worry that it's going to kill you because it can't put the power down. Now, of course, the second generation R8 very much built on the strengths of the first generation model, but Audi has made changes to it for 2020. Remember, this is the same car as the Lamborghini Huracan. In case you guys didn't know, Lamborghini and Audi are under the same Volkswagen corporate umbrella. Now, the front fascia of this car got a big refresh, as you can see. And to be honest, I still think the first generation R8 is the better looking vehicle, although I do like some of the changes that Audi has made. They've made it look a lot more aggressive. This Kimura gray exterior color is a new color option, which is a beautiful color, especially in this light. It has kind of like a bluish tint. I personally think this color would look fantastic on an S4. On an R8, I kind of think it's a little dull. I wish it was a brighter color, but hey, color, of course, is all going to come down to your specific taste. Full LED headlights are going to be standard on every R8. This is the V10 performance model, which means it comes standard with Audi's laser light headlights. The laser headlights are basically integrated into the high beams because in the US, the laser headlights are not technically legal yet. And they basically just extend the light beam and give this thing more presence at night so you can see a little bit better. That's a $3,500 option if you guys go for the base trim. Now under here, you can see the grille got slightly larger. My tester also has the black Audi badges for an extra $300. And one of the things that they did this year is Audi added some fake vents to this car. You can see there's a fake vent here to the side on the front fascia. There's also a couple of fake vents on the side. Audi, what were you thinking adding fake vents on a supercar? It's just not necessary, but overall, I still think this is a very good looking car. Now, of course, this car is very low and wide. It's what you expect from a supercar, but it's also not quite as low as other cars. Last week, I had the Acura NSX, and I found that the R8 didn't scrape as much going over like steep driveways because it does sit up a little bit higher. Keep in mind, Audi does not offer the front axle lift system that you can get on the Lamborghini Huracan, so that's something to keep in mind. Now at the side profile, this thing is undeniably a supercar. Just look at the shape of this thing. It's very low and wide. Like I said, it has a functional air skirt, of course, right there underneath the door that feeds air to that V10 engine. There is also a fake vent right here that they added on both sides of the vehicle, which really drives me crazy. They shouldn't be putting fake vents on a supercar, especially one that is mid-engine. Now the wheels on this particular one here, these are the optional 20-inch wheels that you get on this particular trim. It is available on the lower trims, but it's a slightly different design. These are a milled aluminum wheel, which means that they are a little bit stronger versus a forged or a cast wheel. They're a 20-inch wheel. You got 245s in the front, 305s in the back. Carbon ceramic brakes are standard on the R8 performance model. So you have 15-inch rotors in the front with 6-piston Brembo calipers. So some serious stopping power. These are typically a $10,000 option, of course, if you guys go for the base model. Now, in case you forget, Audi likes to put a nice V10 badge here on this car, but to remind you, this is the only naturally aspirated V10 left aside from the Huracan. And this thing actually is not quite as big as I realized. At 174 inches long, this is actually about 2 inches shorter than the Acura NSX and about 6 inches shorter than the new mid-engine Corvette, which how could you be comparing a Corvette to something like this? But the new mid-engine Vette definitely sets the bar up pretty high for these supercars. Now at the rear, you can see the engine is displayed here through this glass cover, which we'll talk about the engine in just a moment. A lot of these vents that you do see here, of course, are functional. They're heat extractors so the engine can breathe. And then the V10 performance model gives you this fixed carbon fiber spoiler. Speaking of which, my tester has about $7,000 worth of additional carbon fiber on the front fascia, on the rear. The spoiler, of course. You have these full LED taillights, which, by the way, this does include a sequential LED at the front and at the rear. That's very much an Audi thing. And they also updated the rear fascia as well. You do have some functional heat extractors back here, but this right here is fake. What were you thinking, Audi adding a fake vent, you know, over the license plate? Before, there used to be a painted panel there instead. So really disappointed to see Audi adding some fake vents. These big exhaust tips you can see here are standard on this particular model. The exhaust tips are so huge that I can fit my entire fist in it, just like I could in the McLaren GT. So I guess that passes my personal test for supercars. And of course you have a more aggressive rear diffuser, but hey, the exhausts are big. It's got a naturally aspirated V10. Let's start it up and hear how it sounds like. So I have been looking forward to this moment ever since Audi dropped this thing off. Let's fire up that V10 and hear how it sounds. Okay. It actually moved the car when you floored it.
Really?
Yeah, it actually just like, it rocked the car forward for a second. All right, so obviously the V10 sounds fantastic, so you guys are gonna hear more of that when we get out on the road. Now, the R8 does not have any trunk space in the back. Instead, everything is in the front of this vehicle, which is good because the NSX, if you guys remember, doesn't have a frunk, so this is what you expect for a supercar. And the space is not bad. Audi says you get around 8 cubic feet of space, which is okay, although I will say I had trouble fitting a 21-inch roller bag in here, so really, if you're gonna take this thing on a longer trip, you need to make sure you pack light. So obviously, the R8 looks and feels like a supercar on the outside, but what about the interior? This is where you're gonna spend the most of your time, even in something like this, obviously. And if you guys are familiar with a lot of Audi products, you're gonna get inside the R8 and feel pretty much right at home. This is a very nice place to spend time. Now, getting inside, looking at the interior, you can see it's a very minimalistic, simple design. In fact, there's not even a screen over here. We'll talk about that in just a minute. You have just a 12-inch digital display here, what Audi calls their virtual cockpit. You can see the doors are very large because this is a two-door model, obviously. There's a nice grab handle here. When I shut the door feels and sounds very solid. It's very heavy as well. And I really like this Audi steering wheel that you get on the R8. It's got all these buttons on it. It's got a flat bottom design. You can see it's got a drive mode selector. There's a checkered flag there, your loud exhaust button, and of course the red button here to start up the engine. The key fob, as you can see, first I want to show you guys that. It's the typical Audi key fob. This is their company's intelligent access key. It even says R8 on the back. There's a nice place where you can even put the key right there in that slot. And right when you start this car up, you immediately hear. Now, that was with the exhaust in quiet mode, which shuts a baffle off. This is with it in loud mode. You can see it gets a little bit louder. Ooh. And you can see it actually puts a small little red line there for a split second, but once you get out of that and floor it again, ooh. Yep. I'm definitely excited to drive this. It's my first time ever driving a naturally aspirated V10 engine. But let's put the exhaust back into quiet mode. You can hear pretty significant difference. But look at there's this cabin. You can see Audis typically have a very nice interior, and you can see this one is no exception. There's lots of real genuine leather stitching everywhere, contrasting stitching, leather over here, genuine carbon fiber, leather all over the door panels, real metal trim. The window switches feel very high quality. They have a nice tactile click to them. I have power folding mirrors. This opens up your frunk. Power door locks over here. The vent, you can see it's lined in carbon fiber. It's outlined in carbon fiber. It's on the actual door panels. The steering wheel here, you can see, is just a manual tilt and telescoping, but Audi does give you a good amount of adjustability. The seating position in this car, you really feel the short front hood on this thing, but I noticed that the dash is very expansive. It doesn't feel quite as good visibility-wise as the Acura NSX, which is one of this car's main competitors. You can see the seats. These are the optional quilted diamond leather seats that you get with like a 10-way power adjustment. Just a heated seat. Audi does not offer a cooled seat on this car. These are the upgraded seats seats. If you guys go for the base performance model, it'll kind of have a racing style seat. So these are the slightly nicer, more comfortable option. They also have an adjustable thigh support. These seats are pretty comfortable. I actually thought they were more comfortable than the NSX, and they adjust for height, which is a huge thing. So I do feel more comfortable driving in this car, although visibility, as you can see when you look over to the side to check your blind spot, it's a little bit tough to see that. And this car doesn't offer any driver assistance, no blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, no adaptive cruise, no automatic emergency braking, nothing, none of that. Now, door panels, you can see here, red stitching, other gray stitching, real leather, of course, it's all soft touch padded. I also like how Audi puts actual door pockets here. This is very nice, something that I didn't get in the Acura, so Acura needs to look into adding something like that. The Bang & Olufsen stereo in my tester is 9 speakers, like 800 watts of power. Sounds great. It sounds even better than the ELS system that I tested in the NSX last week. I'm going to constantly compare the two because I just got out of the Acura last week, of course. Now, of course, going back to this interior, you can see this interior reminds me a lot of the Audi TT. The R8 will tend to feel like a big Audi TT at times because just like the TT, there's no MMI screen over here, and some of you may like that, some of you may not. I like the way this was really simple, or how it was very simple when I first saw it, but now after spending some time with it, I have to say I don't like how there's only one screen here. Of course, this is the Audi virtual cockpit. This is the infotainment or information display. If you use this little wheel here, you can scroll up and down to show all kinds of information. Click it over to the right, it'll show your audio information. Keep going over, you'll see phone, and you'll see, of course, the GPS, which you can put over there. If you tap this view button over here, it switches out the display and gives you a smaller tachometer and speedometer, of course, which is nice. It's what you kind of expect for something like this. The Android Auto and Apple CarPlay in this car also is integrated into this screen. Now, speaking of which, this Android Auto and CarPlay in this car works very differently. First of all, if you open up this right here, you can see this is where you have your phone. There's a wireless phone charger over there. There's 2 USB ports, a little bit of storage. There's a nice lid there. Once you plug in your phone on this thing, it's supposed to put the CarPlay right here in the screen. So I plugged in my phone and it should automatically come up, which it does. That's what the CarPlay looks like. Now, right now it is working perfectly, but I have to tell you guys, in my 4 days that I had this thing, 50% of the time the CarPlay refused to turn on. It would acknowledge that the CarPlay was there. You can see there's a CarPlay tab, but then this portion here would go completely black. And it did that to me a few times, especially when I was trying to use the GPS function, which was very frustrating. So Audi, I hope you can work with that. This is their older MMI display. It's controlled via this little rotary controller here with this touchpad, and there's some dedicated hard buttons, of course. So if I want to use this screen, I have to scroll around here to go through, you know, whatever it is I'd like to go through, which I'm glad that there is CarPlay in here, but I really think Audi needs to do away with this single screen setup and figure out a way to put a second screen here so I can use it as a touch screen. I just don't like the old Audi MMI interface, but you can see once you have Waze pulled up, for example, you can see it actually, you know, looks pretty cool. And I really wanted to say this kept my eyes on the road, but surprisingly, it didn't. It's because I had to use this controller knob here to kind of cycle through. So again, I was feeling a little bit distracted. Going back to the regular Audi system, you can see you can put your information there for your radio information. You kick it over here on the steering wheel, you can scroll over to whatever you'd like, or you can just show this over here, which is of course very nice. Now, putting the vehicle in reverse, you can see there is a backup camera, but this screen gets blocked by the steering wheel as I'm backing up. So it does include trajectory and distance markers and parking sensors and whatnot. That's really your only driver assistance in this car. Audi doesn't offer anything else in this vehicle. Now, your drive mode selector over here, you can see this cycles between several different modes. Let me get out of this screen here. Push this drive mode selector over here, you can see it'll go between a comfort, automatic, dynamic, of course, and individual. And individual allows you to customize it. And if you push this little checkered flag here, you can see it goes into a performance setting, which I can also switch between dry, wet, and snow, which is pretty cool. Surprisingly, I thought I would have to go through this mode to use the launch control, but the launch control is actually found in the dynamic mode or individual mode. You have to manually turn off stability control, which that already does that when you have it in this mode. But you can hear the engine kind of revs up when it's in that mode. But honestly, this car offers several different personalities, but you should know that this one has the fixed suspension, and I did find the ride quality to be a little bit on the harsher side, which we'll talk about later in the driving scene. There's 3 level heated seats, but there's empty buttons here where they could have put cooled seats. You have single zone automatic climate control. I like the way the dials look over here. This is very reminiscent of the TT. This controls the 7-speed dual clutch. You can see kick it all the way back for drive, all the way forward for reverse, push that P button to go to park. Everything in here looks great. You've got real carbon fiber, real stitching, of course. There's cup holders here. When you push one of these buttons and open this up, you can see pretty decent sized cup holders, and the lid opens up pretty far back. You could fit some decent cups in here. This is better than what I found in the NSX, but I also think that this is a little bit odd. Surprisingly, there is a CD player over here with 2 SD card slots. There's a little bit of storage over here. Obviously, the R8 only seats 2. You can see right behind you, the V10 engine is right back there, which looks fantastic. It sounds fantastic as well. Opening this up, you can see the glove box is huge, massive. It's stamped and lined with felt. You also have door pocket storage over there. The rearview mirror over here looks pretty nice. I love the diamond stitching in Alcantara that my tester has. This is optional, of course, that mine has as an option. And then the sun visors, you can see, they flip up in the completely opposite way, and they're kind of useless. They also don't move anywhere. This is very much expected in most supercars. So overall, this interior, as you can see, pretty nice interior. Don't love the fact that there's just one screen. Visibility in here could be better. Sad how Audi doesn't offer any driver assistance. I think they should consider offering that, even though this is a supercar. Some people really want that feature. Now, if you guys want to show off that V10, there is a little switch over here to open this. However, it doesn't work unless the car is actually turned on. So I've got to turn on the car first, push that little switch, and as you can see, the glass cover opens up hydraulically to reveal one beauty of an engine. This is a Lamborghini engine. It's a 5.2 liter naturally aspirated V10 with direct injection. There's even a few Lambo badges that I saw underneath this hood. There's also some LED lighting in here so you can see the engine at night. This is just a masterpiece to be able to show this. Now, of course, in the performance model, it makes 602 horsepower, which is unchanged this year, and 413 pound-feet of torque. This thing revs up to 8,500 RPM, and it sounds phenomenal. Now, if you guys don't go for the performance model, you get 562 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. It actually got a 30 horsepower bump this year, which is still fantastic numbers. This is right in line with most of its competitors. Now, it all goes out through a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission with, of course, Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive system as standard. Now, of course, fuel economy, in case you're wondering, this thing is hit with a $1,700 gas guzzler tax because it's rated to get 13 in the city, 20 on the highway. Premium gas, of course, is required. The R8, as it sits, weighs around 3,500 pounds. All right, so we're finally onto the scene that I have been looking mostly forward to, and I've joined, of course, with Keith. We drove the NSX last week, and that was a fun car. This competes directly with it. It's got an extra 30 horsepower, 602. We haven't launched it yet, so I'm told to launch it, we put it into dynamic mode here, and that opens everything up. I turn off the stability control here, floor the brake and the accelerator. It actually knocked off the right off. Oh my God. Wow.
Oh, that sound.
That sound is everything.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, wild animal.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Okay. This is why V10s need to stay. I'm sad because this is one of the few naturally aspirated V10s left. Whew, do you want to reconnect?
Yeah. Well, seatbelt's locked.
Okay, so the mic is reattached. All is good. Thoughts, Keith? Because this definitely did not launch as hard as the NSX.
No, definitely slower off the line.
Right.
And that could have to do with, I guess, the hybrid.
Yeah, the hybrid and the NSX definitely like fills in the gaps. This definitely feels a little slower. Audi says 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, which is still fast. Okay. But don't be messing with some like Teslas or an NSX because this thing is not quite fast, and that's because it's a naturally aspirated engine. It's not going to be quite as torque rich. This only has 413 pound-feet. Now, I will say that it is very responsive. I like how when you put your foot down. Listen to the way this thing revs. It just revs for days. Oh my God, it just revs for days. Oh,
oh my God. Killing me, Smalls.
Oh man, Audi. Oh, this is
This
is definitely a Lamborghini V10, and that's the whole point of the R8 is that makes it so unique. Like, I love how Audi got rid of the V8 for this generation, and they only offer it with a V10. Like, who could argue with that?
And that's another thing. Well, the rough ride is one thing.
Yes, we will come back to that because The engine is spectacular. Absolute A+ for the engine with this car. I love the engine. The handling is also great. The steering gives you a lot of feedback. So the steering in this car this one has the dynamic steering package, which does make the steering a little heavier. We had the S4 a couple weeks ago, or last month, and that also had the dynamic steering. It really Yeah, it fixes the steering issue that Audis tend to have. But yeah, the one thing, this one here is the V10 Performance model, which Audi throws out the adaptive magno-rheological dampers and puts in a fixed sport suspension. And as you guys can see, the ride is rough in this thing, like sports car rough that you expect. The NSX rode significantly better than this car, which surprised me. I wasn't expecting this thing to have such a rough ride, but...
Yeah, you could totally daily the NSX.
Right, this you could, but you're like kind of sitting there like bumping around. It's a little harsh. I would recommend trying out the standard R8 and with its magno-rheological dampers. I think Audi needs to make that an option. I don't think they should have put the fixed suspension in this car, because yes, they wanted it, they did it for track reasons. They put the fixed spoiler on the back too, but who is really, like, you could track this, but mostly you're gonna be using this for cruising. Like, it's a really great, like, fun weekend car. Like, that has like the most amazing noise.
Yes!
I could never get tired of that. Holy crap, I could never get tired of that.
And that sound is what, just beats the NSX.
Oh.
Hands down.
Oh my God,
There's no comparison. There's no comparison.
Yeah, we were complaining that the Acura was too quiet. That is exactly it. Like, this is the same price. Actually, it's 20 grand more. Worth it.
Cannot beat that V8 sound or V10 sound. Oh my God. Wow.
It just sits there and revs until your ears are like, oh my God, when is it gonna end? And then just bang, it shifts. You're like, oh, let's do it again. It's a whale. It's like a banshee. I love the sound of that. It's just a V10 whale, has nothing else that matches it really. So if you guys have ever wanted a V10, go buy one of these, like used or new, because it is going away. It is a dying engine. It makes me sad. Makes me very sad. Now, of course, the downside with an engine like this is the fuel economy is not great. 1320 mpg, it's hit with a $1,700 gas guzzler tax, and right now it says we're getting 10.8 miles to the gallon because I keep doing that. But who cares?
Let's be real. It's worth it. It's worth spending the extra gas money. My God.
Totally worth it. The whole reason for this car is the noise, because let's be honest here, on the outside, this car looks impressive, but this color, Camorra Gray, is a beautiful color, but Keith and I both agreed it belongs on an S4.
It does.
It doesn't belong on an R8. An R8, we want it to be a bright color because this thing flies under the radar, which I guess is good if you want it to fly under the radar, but we prefer supercars to be loud and shouty. Like,
everything about it needs to be loud.
Well, yeah, because that's the whole reason why you bought a supercar, is to get attention. And this thing still does, but in this color, it's a beautiful color, but I would definitely go with a much brighter color, for sure. Must have a brighter color. But I would love to try the launch control one more time. It's like,
I mean, I'm not going to argue with you.
Let's go try the launch control one more time.
Twist my arm. Man.
Foot on brake. Ooh. Oh.
Yeah. Every time. Yes, every time.
8,500 RPM. I mean, how could you get tired of listening to that noise? Oh my God, Audi. Yes, I love the V10 in this thing. It's just an A+ for the engine. A+ for the engine, and the ride quality gets a C though, but I think I'd have to go for the convertible for sure. Yeah, because
you can hear the noise.
I want to hear that noise even more, and for I think the convertible's an extra 12 grand. I would go for the convertible easily.
Well, when you're spending this much, what's it? 12 grand.
Now, Keith, before we end this video, Keith, I want to ask you, would you rather drive this or the NSX? Daily. I'm talking about this. Okay.
Even though it's harder to daily because it's, rough riding and everything, the sound of that V10 would just make me giggle and smile every single day. So I could live with a rough ride. I mean, this is definitely my choice. As much as I loved the NSX, this is my choice.
Yeah, I would have to agree that the V10 makes this car. It's the best engine that I've driven in all the supercars. I've had 4 supercars this summer, between the McLaren GT, the Corvette, the NSX, and this. This has the best engine. The dual clutch in this car is also not bad. It is pretty quick, but I noticed at times that it does get somewhat jerky. And especially when you're just in regular drive, it's a little sluggish at times. And you kind of feel that this thing has not as much torque as the NSX because of the electric motors and such, but yeah, I find so little faults with this car, just other than just like, it's too expensive. This costs a lot. I mean, you could also get a Porsche 911 for this kind of money too. And the Porsche might be a little more comfortable. It has back seats, but I mean, and you have to deal with 10.8 mpg. But anyways, I can't say any more praise about the 10-cylinder engine. It is phenomenal, but go buy one of these if you guys want a V10. This and the Lambo are one of the only ones available left.
So we could actually, that's the 83 right there, Route 83. We could actually head 83 south and go back to my house.
Perfect.
Or if you wanted to drive back that way, we could drive back that way if there's more you wanted to talk about.
No, I think I got everything.
Gas.
I would like to get gas, because this thing has 60 miles left to empty, and we've been having some fun with it. So over the years, I've driven a lot of supercars, and the R8 and of course its Lamborghini cousin have eluded me over those years. So after spending some time with the 2020 R8, I'm pretty impressed with this thing. Obviously, the color on this car isn't my favorite. It's a great color, but I prefer supercars to be brighter. But this thing still gets a lot of attention out on the road. Its V10 engine is literally the star of this thing. It's one of the last supercars you can get with a naturally aspirated V10, a 7-speed dual clutch. Now, obviously, some of you out there are probably saying, well, Audi doesn't offer the manual anymore. People don't buy manuals, especially on supercars anymore, so I'm kind of okay with that. The Quattro all-wheel drive system makes this thing still a really easy daily driver, and the whole package of this car, it offers a lot for the money, considering the fact that the Lamborghini cousin cost around $60,000 more at a starting price of around 169 grand for the base model. The R8 is certainly expensive, but it's also still relatively a good value, at least by supercar standards, because most of its competitors are going to be $10,000 to $20,000 more expensive, especially if you're looking at a McLaren or a Ferrari or of course that Lamborghini. Now really where the R8 starts to suffer for me is this performance trim. I don't like the ride quality of this particular trim, and I would probably go for a convertible if I was gonna get this car, because hello, why would you not want to hear that V10 even more with the top down? So my recommendation, go for the convertible, go for the standard model because of its adaptive suspension. It should have a softer ride quality, and it'll also save you a good chunk of money because, as you guys know, the performance version starts at around $196,000, so about $26,000 more, or around $12,000 more if you guys go for the convertible. Now this particular one here is basically a fully maxed out R8. It stickers for a total of $217,000, which is, I know, a lot of money, but keep in mind the Lamborghini Huracan starts at around $262,000, so this is still a great deal cheaper. Now, of course, you could also compare this to the Acura NSX, which is about $10,000 less. The yellow one that I had last week was around 198 grand, but I'd argue that the R8 feels and sounds obviously more exotic. It feels a little bit more special on the inside, and really, even though this is a little bit slower, that naturally aspirated V10, it's just a winner for me. So this is definitely one of my favorite supercars that you can buy for the money. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2020 Audi R8 Performance. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.